Infertility is a major issue for couples that experience this. And I can really speak into it because my husband and I, when we set out to start our family, we encountered infertility problems that went on for years. And I had multiple miscarriages, multiple um, pregnancies that were actually in the fallopian tube. So I had to have emergency surgeries. I mean, really, this went on for years before we adopted our three beautiful children, and no regrets. We would not have the children we have were it not for what we went through. But I know what that journey is like. I know how exhausting it is. And so today on the podcast, we're going to have a guest who it's going to be a little bit different from what we normally do. And I know many of you that are listening, you're in your 40s, your 50s, maybe you are raising your kids. But if you have a daughter, you may have a daughter who experiences these problems. So it's really good to know about the subject. Today, I have with me the founder of Finding Fertility, Monica Cox. She helps midlife professional women who've tried everything to get pregnant by addressing what conventional medicine misses: the gut fertility connection, cellular inflammation, and those subconscious blocks that nobody is talking about. She has a no BS, fresh approach and really a way that she helps women transform infertility to fertility, from a clinical nightmare into an empowering journey. Monica helps women finally understand what their body actually needs to get and stay pregnant. Monica, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for sharing your own personal journey. I know many people still, you know, kind of feel like it's taboo, but the more we talk about it and the more we share our personal experiences, we can really help. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. Well, not funny, but it's odd. I really now I don't have any kind of feelings of, I've missed out or any kind of feelings of grief. I've gone through my whole process, my whole journey, but I've talked to a lot of women and I know how difficult that can be. And oftentimes I know I had multiple miscarriages and multiple surgeries, and people don't know what to say. They really don't know what to say. And they often will, stumble over their words. And same when you adopt, they just don't have the right words for what they're trying to say to you. And it can sometimes make it worse. So I think having open, honest conversations about this is key. It's
Mhm.
absolutely key. So I want to talk a little bit about what you do, but first, how did this come about? Because you had your own journey. You had miscarriages, you had IVF, you went through all of the things, and it was like 8 years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a long journey too. And I would say the difference in my journey is that, I had the internet. And I had people willing to talk about, their situations and their stories. Not a lot of fertility stuff, I have to admit, when I was going through it, but a lot of new functional medicine stuff and new things about the way we move, the way we eat, what's going on. And so when the doctors told me after my first failed IVF at the age of 30 and 3 years of unexplained, infertility, as they call it, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just try this diet and lifestyle thing out. The irony was I was fit and healthy. You couldn't look at me and say that I, looked unhealthy and I didn't have a diagnosis. I didn't have thyroid issues. I didn't have PCOS, endometriosis, any kind of the typical things. So to be honest, I just felt like I was at a loss with the medical world. And if there was things that I could change, even though maybe I didn't think I needed to change, I kind of just was willing to do it. And that's really what brought me to where I'm at now with two beautiful little boys, one through IVF, and then I got pregnant naturally at the age of 36. And I really started to understand about cellular health and the gut, brain connection, but the gut fertility connection that no one really seemed to be piecing together, that the whole body is connected. And why are we looking at the fertility just as your ovaries and your womb and your fallopian tubes, which, yes, absolutely, those are, essential for fertility. But what actually controls that? It all starts up in your brain, your pituitary, your penile, hypothalamus, moves your way down into your adrenals, your gut health, your liver, your detox. And so when I started to look at my normal and common health issues, I had IBS. I had major gut health issues. I had brain fog. I had joint pain at 30 years old. I had all these little health issues that weren't adding up to a lot because I was functioning. I had a job. I was still active and healthy. And, fertility issues were really my big red flag that maybe your body isn't working to the best of its ability, especially to carry life.
Mm. That's interesting because the way you describe it, it's almost like the fertility issues are like a symptom
Mhm.
of an underlying deeper problem, which, as you know, functional medicine, that's the whole idea behind it is you get to the root cause as opposed to just running right to the treatment. And nothing against Western medicine. I think that when we need it absolutely. But many times they're not looking at the root cause. It's like, well, how can I fix this? What can I, what treatment, what pill, what this, what that? And yeah, I went through all of those, all of those disappointments, all of those things. So understand it completely. And then as you were talking, I was thinking I had all the gut issues pretty young,
Mhm.
and a lot of fatigue, joint pain, brain fog. And then I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in my 50s. And they think that I had it a very long time, and it was very, very slowly developing.
Oh, yeah.
Now that I know what I know about nutrition and exercise, I didn't know those things in my 20s and 30s. And I just felt like, what do I do? Who do I turn to? There was not.
Mhm.
The internet was just getting started in the
Right.
90s,
Yes, yes.
and the old dial up.
I remember it. I'm old enough to remember all this. So I absolutely, and that's kind of where the shift is now for women of all ages, is that we're finally getting a hold of knowledge that has been lost. And yeah, there's absolutely nothing against Western medicine. It's essential. We need it at times, but we weren't taught to use it with empowerment, with intuition, with discernment, and to be able to take control of things that we could before we go and use those medical assistants. Because what I deal with now with a lot of my clients is that they've done round after round of IVF, and they've never addressed even slightly some of the root cause. And what happens when you are going through IVF mentally, emotionally, you're draining yourself, and it's actually contributing to more fertility issues. But we've been taught, well, you're getting older, keep going, this is your only hope. And really, when we want to go into using medical assistance, it's with that empowerment of like, okay, you know what? I've taken care of myself. I've taken time. And that's why I saw the success I saw with medical assistance, because I took a year in between my two IVFs, and I improved my health and my diet, and it's still, I wasn't getting pregnant still. So I thought, okay, I'll use IVF again. And we made better embryos when we were told that I could do nothing about my egg quality, because that was my final diagnosis with the medical system. My husband's sperm was fine. I had low egg quality. Well, I didn't have low egg quality. I was inflamed. I had high inflammation through my whole body. And just like you, I was, with my knowledge now, I was probably infertile at 16, 17. That's how young my gut health issues and my anxiety and all the little warning signs were going off. But because we're high functioning, we're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not sick in bed. The human body is absolutely amazing what it can get you through, and it just keeps healing and healing and healing. And the moment you actually help it to heal, you give it what it needs, what it's desiring, what it's lacking, your cellular health just goes through the roof, and your age doesn't matter as much, right? It drives me crazy that this whole industry is built around the numbers of birthday candles you have, not by your true age of your cellular health and how you're taking care of your body. And yes, there's menopause, no one's gonna bypass that, but menopause should be really a little bit later in life and a little bit enjoyable, right? You're moving into that next era of your life. But for a lot of us, we're told, well, you're 35, that's it, death sentence. Your eggs are done. You might have
Right.
a few left, which is complete 80s junk science.
Mm. Yeah, I've even heard my daughter's getting close to 30 now. She's gonna be turning 29, and she has a boyfriend, but not yet married. But I've heard her make reference of, well, I don't know because I'm running out of time. And then the chance of having a child with birth defects is really high. That's another thing that we hear all the time. Okay, at past 35, it gets riskier, past 40. I know my mother had me in her early 40s, and it was absolutely unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people
Yep.
were looking at her, what are you, nuts? Like,
Yep.
what are you doing? And it was a big deal. They were telling her, oh, you got to lie down, don't move, rest, all these things. It's kind of interesting to look back. Now, in my case, they did find something. I was actually having an ultrasound done, and my mom was in with me at the time. And a doctor came in and he said, you have a T-shaped uterus.
Mm-hmm.
And then he began talk, and I'm like, well, how did that happen? And he began talking about my age, and he said, did your mother ever take a drug to prevent miscarriage? And she was in the room. She just burst out crying. And I looked at her and I went, oh my goodness, she did. Well, it turned out that particular drug, a lot of the daughters, it's DES, were born with the T-shaped uterus, and they went on to have problems. So I didn't pursue the IVF,
Mm-hmm.
long story short, because they told me you would probably have a stillborn
Mm-hmm.
child. Now, I don't know how true that is now looking back, but at the time I was like, oh no, I can't go through that.
Mm-hmm.
So the women that you're seeing, first of all, do you see the couples together? Are women coming to you independently? How are you working with them?
Yeah, so I mainly focus on women's health. That's what I know. That's, my own experience. Guys usually tend to be a little bit easier because they don't have that hormone fluctuation. They don't really have a lot of the mental and emotional issues that we put on ourselves because we're the woman. We're supposed to carry the baby. Even if it is a male diagnosis issue, we're still kind of feeling that blame and burden. um, so I've helped a few men with their gut health. That's pretty easy to do. But I mainly focus on women. But I always say we always have the talk around what their husband is doing. Is your husband smoking weed? Is he drinking too much? What's his patterns like? Is he supportive? And I'll just have a little bit of tough love. Like, yeah, I can help you as much as you want. But in my situation, my husband's sperm was fine. And I had to change my diet, but I needed my husband's support. And when he wasn't willing at first, I just said, well, I'm not going to do IVF again. If we can't do this together as a couple, how are we going to raise children and make hard decisions and do hard things together? I need your help. And so, I have a great husband. We're still married 21 years later. He was like, okay, I will support you. And because we were still using medical treatment, we had the proof in the pudding. His sperm went from fine, but still improved by the millions. And so when you are told that your husband's sperm is fine, you got to really think, well, what's fine nowadays in this society? And if your husband's sperm isn't fine, once again, you're dealing with a cellular health issue. Look at the areas that you both can improve together. And this is the tricky part with the mental and emotional side of things. Where is he willing to, start kind of talking about his feelings? Is that if that's uncomfortable, or if he had past issues in his life, can he get support? And I really think when you're working with someone, that you work with someone that you resonate with, that you understand, that they understand where you're coming from. So guys really need to go find another guy. Where's another guy that maybe shares some similar experiences, and they can have their own private chats. Um, so it's very important for both women and men to do as much work as they're ready for in their journey, and to remember you got to meet each other where you're at. You can't force anyone to do whatever you want to do. Yes, I put an ultimatum, and I was fine with not having kids. If he wasn't willing to do that, then that was going to be our journey together, and it had to be up to him. How bad do you want to have kids? And now he sees with hindsight, like, yeah, I'm really glad that happened. I'm really glad you gave me that little nudge. Um, so it's just really important for both men and women to get together and do this together. No matter who has the quote unquote issue, you're a couple, and as you know, you've raised three beautiful children. Raising children together, just because you're married and you've decided for you to be together, it doesn't matter how your children come into your life. They're there to really help shape a new reality for all of you, and you got to make tough decisions about another human being's life together.
I love that. You're so spot on with that. I know with my three, raising them, I mean, what a gift, what a blessing. And sorry, my little earbuds are coming out on me. Hold on. There we go. They get caught up in my hair and out they come.
Yeah.
Fall right out. But I look back and like I said, no regrets. And they were part of my healing,
Mm-hmm.
because I know once we started to bring our children home, our children were adopted from China. We, just built this family and built it around our faith. And we were just really, both of us, able to heal from those years and everything we had been through. And it's interesting because we always said we would do both. When we first met, we said, well, we're going to adopt, and we're going to also have, children
Mm-hmm.
naturally. And the second part didn't work out. God had a different plan, but you're right. Once you start raising those kids, everything changes. I want to talk a little bit about the stress of going through this journey, because I know, and I don't know how to put this, delicate subject, but it's almost like when it's all about getting pregnant, it's like a part of your relationship dies a little bit. Some of the romance dies,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, we got a job to do,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and going to all these doctor's appointments and testing, and it just zaps all the romance right out of your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this is twofold, okay? So, one, I want to say your fertility is innate. Unless you have a structural issue or a genetic issue hindering that innateness, everyone else is dealing with a cellular health issue. So, we have to really reframe that. So, once you get, the workup and you get your answers, then you can move on. Okay, what am I actually dealing with? Okay, I have a structural issue. So, that's going to lead me down this path. But if I don't have that issue, I can look this way. And so when you get a really clear ideal of where you need to go on boosting and supporting your path, then it's really about getting into alignment and surrender. But usually people pattern the same way in a fertility journey that they were patterning before they even knew they had fertility issues. So a lot of us women are type A, we're in control, we're achievers, we're doers, and that has brought us success in our relationships, in our families, our work, whatever it is. And the irony with fertility is that's probably the one thing that helped contribute to the fertility issues in the first place, if it's not structural or a genetic factor that functional medicine can't improve. So it's really looking back at your life and going, where am I seeking self-worth, self-love, control, my timelines, my expectations, and getting into that surrender and using whatever faith you have to know that God's in control, but not in the control of like he's got the wheel and he, or
Right.
she, right? It's like, okay, there's a purpose for me. And for you, I think your story is beautiful, is that there was a purpose, but you had to surrender to and make those decisions for yourself of letting your children come to you naturally through, adoption, through IVF, through, the natural way. But you let go of that surrender and made those empowering decisions when you had your things, and your children came to you in a beautiful way. And so it's really looking and going, what can I control with grace? So like your diet, right? Even no matter how your children come to you, you want to have a clean, healthy diet for you, whatever that looks like, because that's going to give you longevity to then become a grandma. Then, to be able to run around with your children and be in your 60s healthy. And, I unfortunately lost my father at 68 just last year
Oh.
because he didn't take care of himself. So we're talking about longevity. We're not just talking about the two pink lines or even just getting your children into your life. We're talking about sustaining this world that you get to be happy and healthy while your children are growing up, and then being able to see your grandchildren whenever that may be. So, really, when you're in the thick of a fertility struggle and you have all the stressors and you have this reality that seems so real, like, I can't do this, my body's broken, this and that, it's really getting back and going, okay, what do I truly deeply believe? There's been something that's put in my heart, and I know it's mine. I know my family is mine. And if I surrender of how it works, how I'm going to get there, and just focus on improving my cellular health, mentally, emotionally, and physically, I know it will come. But it's really hard to do when you're so type A and you're just white knuckling yourself through this. And that's where the subconscious work comes through. And that's usually from your past, right? The person you are, the 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 56-year-old, is a combination of every life, not life, but year you've lived. And it just builds and builds. So if you're not seeing the success, or you're not really happy with where you are in your life, it's time to look back at the past and go, okay, how can I shape a new one? How can I support who I used to be to who I want to become?
Beautifully said. And my condolences for your father.
Oh,
So
thank you.
young.
So young, so young. But it
Oh.
was his journey. And that was something that I didn't realize, my fertility issues, and maybe you can attest to this too, is that I thought it was hard. And it was hard. Fertility issues sucked. But nothing prepares you for the deep surrender of having to support someone through end of life when you have no control of their journey. It's, you have to surrender that control. The facts is, and this does, I'm not boosting myself, I could have saved him. Of course I could have. I have all of the functional knowledge, I
Mhm.
have all the subconscious knowledge. He didn't want it. And it's heartbreaking when you see someone that you love so deeply, they're done with life, they're not willing to put in that work, they don't want to look in the mirror, and you have to surrender and say, okay, I'll hold your hand as we walk to the end of life. Talk about surrender there. That is,
Oh,
really
yes.
hard place. And the work that we do physically, mentally, and emotionally is not to negate cancer, to negate bad things happening to us, because it can happen. Illness can fall on us. Trauma and deficit can happen at any stage of our life. It's how we're going to move through that that's going to help us define it in a way that doesn't crush us.
Mm. You say so many good things there, and I hear that piece of surrender often, which I really like that because that's often missed, especially by people like yourself, like me. We're type A. We want, we want to do the things, dot the I's, cross the T's, but there's things we can't control. I was with my father end of life as well. Now he was much older, but I know what that journey's like, and it is a surrender. Going through the infertility and then realizing this can't be fixed, and letting go and surrendering there and allowing what needed to happen so that we could have the family we were meant to have. Just so many good things that you're saying. How do you handle if you're helping a woman through this, you're holding her hand, you're walking her through, getting to the best health that she can conceivably get to? How do you handle disappointment if she's not able to get pregnant or she miscarries, which having a miscarriage is just, it's devastating.
Yeah, and that happens a lot of time in my practice, right? My first answer to this might be being able to take time off, not stop, not give up, but just give yourself some time to breathe and recalibrate. And when there is a failed IVF or a miscarriage, or even a success in life that you thought, well, I'm doing the work, why am I not seeing the success? This is where radical responsibility comes in. And it's really first allowing yourself to be in the thick of it. Whatever emotions are coming up around that disappointment. And I know when I had my miscarriages and failed IVF, instead of just sitting in it, I went straight to Google and thought, well, okay, let me find the next answer. Let me go get this. Let me go get that. And instead of just going, okay, I even was talking to a woman this morning, and unfortunately, she is going through another miscarriage. And she said, well, how can I get through this? How can I keep a positive attitude? And I went, don't be angry, be sad, be disappointed. Feel that injustice in your body and let it be able to leave your body, because that's the only way to allow those emotions to leave. And there are going to be waves. Emotions come and go. So when you feel that hit of grief or that frustration or that sadness, allow yourself to feel it, because then maybe you'll get your answers of where it's coming from. Is there a deeper subconscious belief? Is there a deeper traumatic incident that's getting triggered? Or is this just the wave of life that you dealt with something really hard and you're just allowing it, right? I have all the tools in the world, and I will let grief come about my dad. I will let the anger come about some of the situations that around it, because I know that me going to do another modality to quickly let it get out or go away is not, it's just bypassing it, and it will just keep coming back until I really deal with it anyways. So
Yes.
it's very important when you're going through hard things to let it be hard for a while and raise your hand and say, yeah, I'm not doing well. I'm not going to the party. I'm not hosting this. I'm taking a day off of work. I'm giving myself time to feel this, and explore it. Do I need more? Do I just need a walk? Do I need a therapy session? What do I need? And then allow it to really leave your body. And another thing that I don't think is talked about enough is, what are you going to allow back in? Okay, that anchor's left you. Now there's space. What are you going to fill it with? And using that imagination of, okay, what's your favorite thing? The pink fuzzy mic, to show my mic, or, glitter, or what sets your soul on fire, and allowing more of that to come into your life when you finally let the grief, the anger, the disappointment leave.
We do have to sit in that, and that is hard to
Mm-hmm.
do. I've had many times in my life, whether it was during that time of, losing a child, having a miscarriage, where I just didn't want to sit and feel what I needed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think we experience that with past trauma. It'll just keep coming up until we finally deal with it. And I've seen that a lot, especially in midlife, where all of a sudden it's there, it's in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Loss of a loved one. I've been through that. And that's the hardest thing to do. I recently had two major surgeries within 9 months. It just wouldn't recommend it, but I had a back surgery prior to the back surgery, I had torn my rotator cuff and my bicep tendon.
Mm-hmm.
So no sooner healed from the back surgery and had to turn around and have that repaired. It had to be done. And oh boy, that second surgery, I was just, I had to allow myself to kind of be bummed out, like really bummed out,
Yeah.
because I love to exercise. I love to move. I love to lift weights. And I had to sit in that. And while you were talking about that, I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I had no choice. But when you come out the other side, a lot of times you come out with some clarity and
Yes.
focus about what you should be doing.
Absolutely. And that's where the surrender is so important, and feeling it is because you are actually getting into alignment with, higher source, whatever you want to name it, and you are getting into your subconscious, your higher conscious, you're getting into your heart, and you're getting cohered. And so it's this channel of information that gets distracted, or you can't hear it when you're just going, when you're just doing, when you're pushing through those emotions, right? It's that whole toxic positivity stuff of like, well, just think happy thoughts, keep going, don't worry, you'll get through it, right? And it works. It does, but just like your body, eventually you're gonna hit a wall, and it's gonna catch up with you. And so if you can just get that radical honesty from the moment and just be the ultimate observer of your own life for a while. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What is going on? Don't try to fix it. Don't try to judge it. And then you'll start going, oh, this was huge in my life. I was introduced to the ideal of it, and I was standing at my kitchen sink. I have my ideal life, right? And I was in victim mode, and I was pissed off that I had to be doing the dishes again. And I was just like, I think this constantly. This is almost like a daily occurrence that I'm thinking this. So maybe that's not why I'm seeing the next level of where I want to go. Maybe I'm hitting that wall, and okay, let's see. Where's that work that I need to personally do to change my inner reality so my outer reality matches what I want. Because we can consciously think things, but it's really subconsciously, and watching that default energy of how you're truly moving. Not in the gym, not on the yoga mat, not with your acupuncturist or your energy healer. What are you doing 80 to 90% of your waking hours? How are you truly thinking, feeling, moving? Because we're all really good at doing the stuff and having this outside facade, but really getting inwards and saying, okay, things feel a little bit off. What can I do to change that for myself?
And kind of going back to that root cause, why do I feel that way? I know for me, it'll show up as resentment. You know, we were talking about the
Absolutely.
dishes. It's like this seething resentment. And I'm like, no, this is not okay. It's not good for my body or my mind. And
Mm,
typically the person we're mad at, they don't even know we're mad at
no.
them because we've bottled it up and
Oh yeah.
not talked about it. So I get that. Now, when a woman comes to you, and let's say she's struggling to get pregnant, she's been on the road for a while, where do you start? Do you start with gut health testing? What kind of things do you do with her?
It's different for everyone, and this is where I tune into my attunement, my intuition, and this is, a gift that I have, is to really see where the holes are in your journey. So it's really getting to know you and meeting you where you're at as well. If I know that you have major gut health issues, but you've never done diet changes in your life, I'm not going to suggest you go full AIP, autoimmune paleo, and
Hmm.
literally wipe off like 90% of what you're used to eating. So that's where I think women need to start too, is to really, where are you at in your journey, and what are you willing, because there's going to be a little bit of willpower that you need. It's not all willpower. We can't willpower our way, but you got to make that first choice. Am I willing to give up my favorite food? Am I willing to stop watching as much TV? Am I willing to go on one walk a day? What am I willing to do next to evolve and boost my health. Not everyone needs gut health testing. Yes, everyone can improve their gut, but that's really easily done by eating clean foods, bringing in prebiotics, probiotic foods. Um, eh, a lot of people just need to have a wider variety in their diet. I mean, it gets really simple. Now, if you're having more digestive issues and that there's some chronic issues and you haven't done testing, yeah, let's do a really good gut health test. I want to look at your microbiome. I want to look at your functions. I don't want to be told whether or not you have leaky gut. I could probably tell you that already. I want a test that tells me what's really happening. Um, if you have done that already and you're not sticking to maybe what I get a lot of clients, well, I had this functional medicine doctor. Some have worked with some of the top doctors out there. Why aren't you doing the work then? Why aren't you showing up for yourself? Okay, let's look at your subconscious. Let's look at your self worth and your self love, because that's a really big thing for people. And it was a big thing for me. And we can even do this with your listeners right now. I want them to repeat after me when I say, I am worthy because I am me. And I want you to feel how that landed in your body. A lot of my clients will say, oh, that felt weird and icky and, like eat, pray, love kind of thing. And I said, well, isn't it interesting that you think it's weird and icky to just feel worthy because you are you? We're innately born with that. And it just gets, you know, driven away from our subconscious beliefs for whatever, society, our families, our generational things, whatever it is. And a lot of people don't realize that they don't think they're worthy enough of being a mom, or worthy enough of having nutritious food, or showing up for themselves, or going to bed on time. And so when you dissect those types of things, that's where you need to start. There's no right way for anyone, no right modality, no right diet, and really just honoring where are you at. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, it takes us to hit rock bottom to say, I'm done. Okay, I recognize that everything that I'm doing, all the healing, all the white knuckling, all the perfectionism, or maybe not showing up for myself, is not working. And I'm willing to make a radical change for myself.
Mm. I really love that you hit on the self-worth. I'm a big believer, and I'll often say to my daughters, and I'll say to a client, you are worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a tough one. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're knit together in your mother's womb.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that says it all.
It does.
You are beautifully made,
Mm-hmm.
knit together. And I love that, because it does remind us of our self-worth, and very important to tap into. And then I was kind of picking up on, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, perhaps when people go too much down the rabbit hole, because I've been seeing that too. Functional medicine is great, but it can take you down 50 different paths with 50 different supplement
Mm-hmm.
routines. And I see women get overwhelmed, stressed out. They'll do like a food sensitivity test. They're like, I can't even have a green bean. And they're just they're really upset about it. And so I think some of that could potentially backfire a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the functional medicine space has caught fire in the last 15 years, right? I've been watching it for the last 15 years. And I got to a point in my journey where I was still perfect. I was still AIP because that's what I personally needed to do. I did need to do it. Um, I had the yoga, I had all these things, but I was still type A, and it's called performance health.
Hmm.
And like I said about hitting that wall, when my second son was 2 years old, I found myself sitting on the floor, and he was crying over a red popsicle because he wanted a blue popsicle. And the rage I felt in my body, I consciously knew wasn't right. I shouldn't be this mad. I shouldn't be feeling this over what he's doing right now. I have a degree in early education. I worked with children for 20 years. I was supposed to be Mary Poppins. I was supposed to be that Pinterest mom, the gentle parenting. And that was kind of the first moment I realized there's more to this than the physical. And when you get so hyper focused and over controlling in the testing, I actually had a practitioner in as a client, and she was like, I guess I just need to stop testing. It's like, yeah, your test results really, if when you think about it, they're a snapshot of time, and they're of the past. They're not of your future. So you definitely need those results to help you guide you through of like, okay, what you're doing. But if you're just looking at those results like they're set in stone, or that they're dictating your life and you have to do better and you have to do more, then that's a control pattern. And that's the frequency that you're running underneath the perfection. And like I said, you're going to hit the wall. Talking about the past traumas that we endured during IVF, miscarriages, all the ultrasounds, all those things. No one told me how much stuck emotion I had through all my IVF treatments. And when I started doing the work, and I use breath work as one of my modalities, I had to actually like pound my hips on the floor. And thank God I wasn't in a studio. I was doing a session online and no one was in the room and no one can see me. But I literally was just, my whole body was freaking out. And it wasn't this beautiful breath work. It was messy and raw. And consciously, I knew, I was like, this is all that stored trauma from the hemorrhaging and the emergency C-sections and you know, everyone, this might be too much information, but I've had more people look up my lady bits than I've had sexual
Oh, yeah.
partners,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
I relate. I
right?
relate.
And your body doesn't know any different. If you're feeling uncomfortable in that doctor's office, not because you don't trust the person and you know that this is important, but your body is tense and it can process that as an uncomfortable event. And so it's really important for us women not to look back and go, okay, well, I made it through it, or, it's fine, whatever. Your conscious brain is going to talk you off, talk you out of any healing, because healing feels uncomfortable and unsafe. Um, but really getting back to your body and feeling it and allowing all that repressed stuff to get out of you will really help you move forward in your I feel glory years. Like, I'm not waiting to my 50s to get that fire that most 50s and 60-year-olds get. I'm like, I'm doing it in my 40s. I'm not
Good for
waiting a
you.
decade. So yeah, it's just I don't even know where we're going with this conversation, but yeah, really important just to like tap into what are you truly feeling. And if you have some niggly things, and I'm speaking to your, maybe your regular listeners now, if you have weird things that are coming up and you're just like, man, I'm doing all the right things, take a moment and let's look at your past and let's explore. I don't work with my mom. I always tell her to go get someone else, but she'll bring something else, something up of her past. And I was like, well, I think you should do some breath work. If God is bringing this up in your subconscious now, and it was a memory from 50 years ago and you didn't think it mattered, it's now time to deal with it and let that go of your body and release it. Get rid of that unknown stress that can't be defined, can't be picked up on any functional test or normal Western test. Really get back into that innateness and listen to your body.
Mm. One of the best things I did, I was about 53, 54, and I made the decision. I'm 63 now, getting ready to turn 64. And I made the decision, hard to believe it's been 10 years ago, to find a therapist
Mm-hmm.
who specialized in what I was dealing with in some of those memories. And it is like how your mother described, like you're busy, you're raising your kids, maybe you've got a career. I taught elementary school. So you're pushing all of this stuff to the back. And then all of a sudden, okay, empty nest is starting to occur. I wasn't working as a teacher anymore. And these things can just slap you upside the head. And to your point about going through even the infertility, there's a loss of dignity to
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't know what it's like now, but when I went through it, I felt like I was just a body
Mm-hmm.
and nobody was addressing Carol.
Yep.
And it would be so cold. Like,
Yep.
well, I was actually, I was pregnant with twins and miscarrying. And I remember just doctors talking like I wasn't in the room and deciding the best thing. And, oh, we've got to do surgery or you'll get an infection. But there was no compassion, no. And I know that's not their job,
Yeah.
but that was rough.
Yeah.
That was really rough.
Yeah, it is. And I think that we've just been taught to just, just go through it. Just keep going. Just keep going. We'll get through it, and now we're getting into a certain period of time where us women who just kept going, we're tired. We're done with the keep going, and we are allowing space. And we talked about this earlier about if you just keep going, you got a busy work, you got kids, and you don't have time for the messages. You don't have time for God to talk to you the
Mm-hmm.
way that we were innately given. And so maybe later in life, when we're empty nesters and we're moving through these things, my honest, best advice is just like you did, honor that. Don't don't push it away. It's really coming up for a reason, and find that support that you really need to move through that. And you know what the really cool thing is, and I've seen this with me and my mom, the more the mother heals, and I think the father is part of this too, but we'll just focus on the mother, the more your children will innately heal too,
Mm.
without having to do like quote unquote work. And it's because you show up into the relationship as the innate mother you were always meant to be, and your children can see that, and they'll change their frequency the more you change your frequency. So it's never too late. I had someone say a comment, they have older children than me, we're the same age. Oh, well, I've already messed up my children. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh,
I'm 44 and my mom's 65. We're both doing our own individual healing, and we've never had a better relationship because we're just meeting each other where we were always meant to be. But because life got in the way for the both of us, we went off on our own journeys, and we just had to heal ourselves. And so I think that's the really cool thing, is that no matter what age you are, um, it's important to do that work and to really get back to yourself and you.
such a good point that it's never too late. I would agree with you because mine were already pretty much grown. I had one teen son at home, getting ready to graduate when I decided to go into therapy. But I have to say, it did make a difference going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And now that my kids are adults, it's made a difference in those relationships, which really just as important as when they were
Absolutely.
little.
Oh, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's interesting when they're little, they really, you think they're noticing every little flaw in you, and they're really not, really not. And, it's funny because as women, we beat ourselves up. We always think, oh, the mother guilt over every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's really not like that. And it's never too late. Now, do you ever deal with a situation? Because many of my listeners, they're 40, 50, even 60 plus, and maybe they have daughters who are going through this. And I think about my mom because she was there in, I mean, with my husband, every time I had a surgery, she was back behind, a little curtain with a bed where you're waiting to be brought back. She was with me. She was with me for those ultrasounds, for all of it. I remember she was getting fatigued with the whole thing. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, it impacts the whole family, right? Because especially with mothers, they're just so desperate to have the best for you, and really help fix whatever it is that is necessarily, I don't want to say broken, but just needs that TLC. Um and so my honest with that, it's you got to do what's best for your family. if you feel like your friends and your family are fatigued, ask yourself, well, am I putting too much on them, or are they really showing up and they're okay with being fatigued with me? you know and so it's that radical self honesty. Am I demanding too much of my family? um a lot of the time it's really the opposite for women. They're really silent about their journey, and they don't really want to talk about it, and not many people know. And um sometimes it's hard because they feel like their mother can't relate, because if your mom didn't go through that stuff, then she doesn't really know what it feels like. So yeah, it's a big mix, a big difference, but I think that people want to support you, they want to help. They are going to find it hard, just like you mentioned in the beginning, to find the right words. Um, and that you have to let that be okay. We can't all experience the same thing, and you have to give them grace that they don't know how it feels to experience what you're feeling, and they're only doing the best they can. Even your husband, he has his own journey of how he's feeling, but he can't even really feel what you're feeling as the woman. And so it's just doing the best, once again, of going inwards to yourself, making sure that your team is there and they are supportive. Sometimes you'll need a bit of extra help, and sometimes you won't need help at all. I remember a part of my journey where I didn't want to talk about it anymore. It was so long.
Oh, yeah.
I was sick of talking. I didn't want to hear my own voice. And so you got to maybe say to them, no more questions for 3 months. We're not doing anything. Nothing's going to change. We just don't want to talk about it anymore. We'll let you know when the next phase. And as mothers and aunties and friends, because everyone knows someone now, right, who's dealing with this. And when you tap into your own tuition and your own discernment, you'll feel the energy. You'll feel when the right time to ask them is. Send them flowers for no reason. Do little things that maybe isn't in directly associated with the situation, but would light them up. you know um so you can do things for someone, and you can be really supportive for someone, but not necessarily have to talk about it and have these deep, meaningful conversations every time. And I keep getting called to bring up, with modern medicine and the medication that your mother took and they didn't know the effects
Okay.
of the child. That's happening more and more. And I do believe this is why we're seeing fertility issues on the rise, is because we're introducing more chemicals into the atmosphere, more stress. All of our bodies generationally just get weaker and weaker and weaker. So when it came to my generation, in my family line, my body was done. Both of my grandmas had 9 kids, right? My mom had us very young, but if she would have waited, she had a hysterectomy at 32. She was
Oh,
dealing
wow.
with major issues, either endometriosis or PCOS, but they didn't have the knowledge and experience to really say what she was going through. So they're just like, well, okay, we're just going to take it all out. You're having such bad issues. So when it came to me, 16, 17 years old, I now, with hindsight, I'm not surprised I was dealing with that type of stuff that would impact my fertility. But the medications that we're seeing now being used, and I always get a lot of pushback when I say this, is that there's a lot of clinical um, studies out there. I know they try to put medications on the market as safely as possible, but we're never going to have the information we need for that long-term effects. And even when I was using immune suppressing drugs to have my IVF baby, I was doing everything in my power to make sure my gut health and my cellular health was optimal, to really, because there's no evidence. And a lot of doctors don't want to use those drugs because they're like, we don't know the outcome, long-term outcomes. So really, for your listeners and their daughters and their friends, I know sometimes these drugs seem like a quick fix and they're easy, but we don't know the ramifications of these drugs long term, a lot of them. And I do believe there's a few really popular ones out on the market right now that I think, just like you and your mother experienced, the doctor will ask, did your mother take this during or before pregnancy? And this is potentially why you're dealing with this issue now. Um, there's obviously many things that can affect a fertility, but I think we are living in a day and age of this rapid growth of pharmaceutical drugs that we potentially just won't know the outcome until the next generation starts presenting the issues.
That's true. And it's everywhere. It did explode.
Mm-hmm.
Because when my mother was pregnant, of course, it wasn't like that. But they did have this drug. It was out there to help women who were a little bit older like her to not have a miscarriage. And of course, then they found out the ramifications later. And I think you're right. I think we're going to find things that we didn't realize were potentially affecting fertility or the health of our future babies. And it really has exploded. And then I think being able to advertise, which I never thought that was a great idea, advertising, medications like, hey, get this, get that, get this. And then they list the side effects. It's like, oh my goodness. And I'm not anti
No,
medication
no.
at all, but I think we do have to be cognizant
Mm-hmm.
of what we're putting in our bodies. We do have to be careful and ask the questions and do our research.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's our job now. And sometimes it can feel like a full-time job to figure all these things out, but that's just the society that we're living in. And I think most can rise to the occasion. Really do that research, really tap into that intuition of what feels right for you and your family. And just know that you did the best you can. I know in my journey, and I feel this for you too, is that, we don't look back and regret anything. We and we're proud of the knowledge that we uncovered and everything that we did to make our dreams come true. And that's what I want for women. The, for me and the women I work with, fertility is innate. I know what's going to happen. And if you need medical assistance for some reason, that's the journey it's going to be. I've helped women use surrogacy. I've helped women use egg donor. I am not like, I can get you pregnant naturally. No, we're all on our different paths. My ultimate goal is to get you to be that conscious mother that keeps evolving as motherhood unfolds and the different seasons in life. And my oldest is almost 10 this year. And, I don't regret not having this knowledge, but there's a bit of me that just was like, oh, I could have just had a little bit of better younger years with them if I would have known X, Y, and Z. And that's my own journey, but really we're just here to learn from each other, and the quicker we can do that, so not everyone has to experience the same thing, I think really the better off our whole society will be.
I agree, because there was such a silence and a shame around it. Just so much that wasn't spoken, talked about. And now that we have social media, we have the internet, and I think that is the upside to social media. There's downsides, obviously, but the upside is that being able to connect with other people who are going through the same thing and being able to find information that could potentially help you that I didn't I would have to go to the library to.
Yes. And the reality is those books weren't out there for you. And that's
They
why I
weren't.
think doctors get so upset with maybe coaches like us. It's like, well, you're not a doctor. You shouldn't know about the body. It's like, well, it's not 1950s.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. I do not diagnose, prescribe, or treat. But what I do know is give you the knowledge that you should have had from day one when you became a woman and your period started, that you are innate, that you have empowerment, that you have discernment, intuition. And just because someone's sitting there with quote unquote more knowledge than you in a certain subject doesn't make them right. They have a certain set of knowledge that they learned somewhere, and it could just not be your knowledge. And I always say to women, like, what if I would have chose to listen to the doctors, that there was nothing I can do about my egg quality? I would have never got pregnant through IVF, ever. That's how sick I was. even the immune suppressing drugs, I wasn't even able to make healthy eggs. So my cellular health was so low. And I'm not smarter than anyone out there. I just chose not to believe them and do something different. I got curious. And your consistent action will create your evidence. It will create your proof if you allow it.
And ask questions. Don't be, I always tell people, don't be afraid to question everything
Mhm.
and do your own research. And like you said, get curious. This has been such a rich conversation, Monica. I've really, really enjoyed it. As we start to wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask or we didn't discuss that you'd like the listeners to know?
Ooh, not really, but I would like to leave you with this for every woman. Just be graceful with yourself. You know, you've come this far, you've survived your worst days. And if you just give yourself more grace and the ability to slow down and surrender to that innateness inside of you, you can only get a richer life in all areas of whatever you want. And yeah, just be graceful.
Beautifully said. And how can women find out more about your work, follow you, potentially work with you, Monica?
Yeah, so I'm finding fertility everywhere on the internet, from social media to my podcast and website. And if you have someone in your life, maybe even yourself, if you're still a cycling female and you're interested in growing your family or just starting your family, I have a special gift for all amazing podcast listeners that make it to the end. And if you want a little session with me to see how I work and how I get to the root cause of what's really going on, you can message me dreams, the word dreams, DREMS. You can either email me or find me on social media and pop it into the DMs, and I'll give you a link to get a little free breakthrough session and experience that magic.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Monica. I really appreciate you being on. And listeners, really take advantage of that free offer. It's a beautiful gift. And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.